through the doors. And when he bursts through the doors, he's going to evaluate you and me. He's judge. He's sovereign. He's going to hold us accountable for how we live our life. And so he says, don't complain that you may not be judged. And I want you to understand, this is not some far off idea, but the judge, he's standing right there. He's getting ready to burst through the doors. And we're going to be held accountable to how we live our life. Do not complain, brethren, against one another. When things don't go your way, don't take up complaining as the way to go. It's like the man who had a tough day at his job, came home, and what did he do? He took it out on his wife. Because typically that's what happens when we complain. We won't complain to the person responsible for our situation. We complain against one another. So the husband comes home, he takes it out on the wife. And you know what the wife does, right? She takes it out on the kids. The kids get upset, they take it out on the dog. And the dog comes back and bites the man. And that's what happens when we complain. It can just be contagious. But we need to understand not to complain against one another. And that requires understanding that God is going to hold us accountable for the words that come out of our mouths, and even the groans and the sighing that really is nothing more than murmuring and complaining. James concludes his exposition on being patient in trying times by pointing out the models for being patient. The models, the examples. He assumes that his readers know their Bibles, so he takes them to the Old Testament and he gives them two examples. He gives them a large group and then he zeroes in on a particular individual. And so when we look at these verses, these remaining verses, it gives us examples, real live examples. I mean, the farmer is great, and we can learn a lot from the farmer about what it means to be patient. Being patient doesn't mean that you don't do anything. Being patient says you go on with your life. You do what God calls you to do. That's what the farmer does. He plants the seeds. But then he doesn't just wait for 8 months and then comes back. No, he waters those seeds. He toils the ground. He does the things that he needs to do. And while he's doing that, he's remaining patient. And like the farmer, we need to be about our Lord's business while we're being patient. And we need to know that there's a reward for being patient, just like the farmer. The farmer understands that one day, when the early rains and the latter rains come, it's going to cause these seeds to produce precious produce. And so he expects a reward. And my friend, you and I can expect a reward. We can expect that God will honor us for being patient. But James says, I want to give you some other examples. I want to turn your attention to some Old Testament personalities. And so he talks about the patience of the prophets in verse 10. In that verse it reads, and as an example, brethren, of suffering and patience, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. James is actually giving a command here. And his command is, take the prophets as an example. He's commanding them. He's saying, appropriate this to your life. Don't just hear the words that I'm saying. Don't just read the words that I'm writing, but take this personally and apply it to your life. Take the prophets and take them as an example. And when he talks about the prophets, he's talking about Old Testament prophets. Because later on he said they spoke in the name of the Lord. So he's not talking about current day prophets in James's time. He's talking about Old Testament prophets. And he says, take those prophets as an example. And that word example means that you would have something here and you would have letters here, and underneath it you would trace those letters. In my family, my brother, he could draw. He was a gifted person when it came to anything related to architect.